Baldur's Gate. Oliver had finally made it, and with his brainworm ever present in his skull, he was ready for everything to finally be over. Before we get started, let's review the plan. Surprisingly, or perhaps unsurprisingly, Act 3 is the act that I had the least amount of experience with. Despite the copious amounts of hours I've spent playing this game, I have actually only ever completed it twice. Once for my blind first run, and then again for the tactician achievement. All of the remaining amounts of ridiculous hours were spent suffering from a severe case of restartitis. I don't know what it is, but I tend to get a character to Act 3 and then completely lose momentum and enthusiasm, so I start another character. This lack of experience made me super paranoid walking into this act, but we already had a plan in place from Act 2. If we don't have to fight it, then we aren't going to fight it. So we'll get to level 12 and beeline it straight for the end, preferably without taking any unnecessary risks. Hey, I already said it before, I'm being a complete coward this run, but it's not over yet, so let's see if we can do this. Oliver was finding it hard to focus. All he had been through, his changing powers, brainworms, mind flayers, and gods, everything was just chaos. But he would get relief. All he had to do now was sleep. Of course it couldn't be that easy though, because as he started to shut his eyes, the camp was attacked by some Githyanki. The crew sprung into action, making it through the threats by misty-stepping past the attackers and running straight into the portal. Once inside, they fought their way through some Gith monks, getting to level 10 in the process, and finally coming face to face with the Dream Visitor. Maybe it was Oliver's mind playing tricks on him, but she looked a little different than he remembered. They didn't have time to dwell on the Dream Visitor's change in appearance yet, because they had to deal with the remaining Githyanki first. They took them out, and finally had a talk with this transformed Dream Visitor. He revealed that he had been a mind flayer all this time, but he was once an adventurer. Oliver didn't really care about any of that. At this point, he was used to being lied to. He only wanted to know if the creature could still help. He could, and offered Oliver and his friends an astral tadpole to make them even stronger for the fights to come. Oliver accepted the power, wondering if it was even worth fighting against it anymore. He did feel stronger, but his mind was still unclear. With luck, killing the brain would solve all of his problems. First, they had to actually get into the city. But the outer walls were surrounded by refugees running away from the army of the Absolute. Before they could make it too far, they ran into some refugees being threatened by some rich guy. Apparently, they were staying in his house, and even though he may not have been wrong for wanting them gone, Oliver still felt like he needed to stick up for them. He scared the rich guy away, but the lady thug he left behind got sassy. He threatened her too, and she realized that Oliver was stronger than he seemed. It was probably best to assert his dominance in the city early though, so... With the thugs dispatched, the group explored the house. In the basement, they found some evidence that the rich man who they ran off was up to no good, and the supplies left for the refugees might be compromised. They rushed over to the guards maintaining the supplies. Oliver tried to tell them that the supplies were not safe, but... well, they only didn't understand the risk yet. It wouldn't be too bad, right? Oliver couldn't believe it. He tried to do the right thing and he was doing 15 to life for it. He was really sick of his poor luck. On a nearby shelf, he noticed a skull, and it could talk. Not very clearly, but could talk nonetheless. He said if Oliver could answer his riddles, then he would help him get out. So, remember when I told you that I had the least amount of experience with Act 3? Yeah, I have never seen this because I've never been arrested in this act before. I had no idea what to do though, so I did cheat a bit and look up the answers to the riddles. There are no retries here, and I would be damned if I lost the run for this, and I don't know what was going to happen if I failed, so I didn't want to figure that out. Answering the riddles correctly, the skull stuck to his word and teleported Oliver outside of the cell with the added bonus of haste and invisibility. These generous boons allowed him to escape without being seen. When he made his way out of the cell, he felt lightheaded. He had a vision of a woman, the pale one working with the Absolute, and he knew what he had to do. He had to kill her. It was unavoidable, and it had to be him. Then he could finally face the end of this. When he got back on his feet, Oliver was confronted by a big robot that told him that a guy named Gortash wanted to see him. He had to reconnect with his companions first though, but it turned out that there was a waypoint right outside the prison, so coming back with everyone would be no issue. That's exactly why Oliver got arrested. He totally meant to do that. They decided to explore Rivington for a while, and it just so happened that there was a circus in town. Oliver thought it might help to clear his head if he played a few leisurely games, but he noticed that not every vendor was playing fair. Astarion helped to even the odds by pickpocketing this guy's ring, and Oliver tested his luck. He wasn't too happy to lose at his own game, so he put Oliver in some jungle filled with
holy fucking shit, it's a dinosaur.
Using invisibility and his cool new worm flight powers, Oliver made his way through the jungle unseen. The real prize here was near the end portal, where he smashed this chest and picked up a fun-looking trident called Nyrula. He stashed it in his pocket for later and returned to the circus to see what the commotion around the stage was for. It was a clown?
Not to my taste.
He wanted Oliver to come on stage, and after he refused, the clown wouldn't leave him alone, so he thought that he would just get it over with. The clown tried to attack Oliver, sicking his dog on him, and it was time to fight back. Astarion took out one of these goons on his opener, and this dog completely ignored Oliver to kill this guy. Bad dog.
Bruh.
Don't you love missing multiple times for a 90% hit chance? Oliver got a little bit of payback by critting after an action surge, but the dumb clown got to live for another round. Astarion took down the misbehaving pup on his turn, Gale magic missiled the clown down next, and Oliver took care of the displacer beast to end the fight. After all the excitement of carnivals and the appearance of rogue doppelgangers likely sent by Orin, Oliver could feel something stirring again. He was going to embrace this chaos he felt, and with it see his former powers start to return. We're bringing back the paladin, guys. After taking a rest, they returned to their exploration and found out that there had been a murder at a temple, and a drunk elephant refused to look into the details. Oliver still wanted to gather some more information before they attempted to take on Orin, so they agreed to investigate. They looked around and found some more doppelgangers hiding out below the temple. They cleaned them up, and found the murder weapon and some more clues. Oliver tucked away the evidence for now, planning to come back to it later if he didn't forget. The crew then wandered by the beach, where they ran into a stranger and witnessed the most dramatic death that had ever graced Baldur's Gate. It looked like their exaggeratedly dead friend was part of a bigger group who looked to be having a dispute. Oliver tried to convince everyone to calm down, but they all turned on him instead.
Cock. What did he say?
Well, he did warn them. Looking closer at what the dispute was about, they found a stash of brainworms on a ship, allowing Oliver to juice himself up even more. With nothing more to accomplish on the beach, Oliver decided to go talk to the frustrating elephant to see if she would finally listen to him. She still annoyingly blew Oliver off despite all of the evidence he found, so they moved on to finally go and talk to Gortash. Going up to the throne room, they were greeted by one of Gortash's giant robot guards. Not ready to start a fight, Oliver agreed to behave, and he met the man himself, preparing to be coronated as the Grand Duke. He made Oliver a proposition. If he would kill Orin, they could work together and take back control of the brain or something like that. Oliver just wanted this worm gone, and he already knew he had to go through Orin for it, so with Gortash controlling the Steel Watch, it seemed like a good idea to avoid fighting. He made a deal with him, ready to move past all this insanity, and it was time to move on to the city. Something odd happened here because I got a letter from Jaheira saying that she couldn't stay because she had something else to do. I'm pretty sure I never talked to Jaheira at all because I was not going to pay attention to that plot line, but with how strange things have kind of gotten this run, I'm not going to question it. Entering the lower city, they found their way to the Elf Song Tavern. The dream visitor mentioned that he used to stay there, so they booked a room as well, hoping that it could be a safe place to rest when they needed it. Jaheira? What the hell? Where did she come from? And why is she dead? Oliver must have been starting to see things, the bodies of those he failed appearing at camp, but he didn't have time to worry about it. There were murderers to stop. They found their way to a wine tasting and warned this gnome of her impending doom. The dwarf with her got really irritated and attacked after revealing that he was the murderer in question. Astarion was able to take out one of the doppelganger copies, and Gale counterspelled the assassin from Dimension Dooring away. Like, the guy didn't leave, so it obviously worked, and I had Astarion attack him. Okay, then thanks for making me waste an action, I guess. Oliver tested out some of his growing powers by taking out another copy. This copy just decided to run to Gale and tank some attacks of opportunity. Gale risked the same on his turn and luckily, he missed. Then he magic missile bombed him to death. And back at the top of the turn order, Astarion took out the last one. With one of the victims saved but the murderer still on the loose, they had to keep moving. Going further into the lower city, they made their way to Sorcerers and Sundries. Gale was interested in learning more about the crown that was controlling the brain, and this store had an expansive selection of books, so they asked about it. The book was kept in a vault, and vaults typically meant something powerful, important, or valuable, so Oliver took note to prepare for a heist. He would get to that eventually, but he remembered that the Dream Visitor might have some useful items in the basement of the Elf Song. They could use some more items to sell to gear up, so they returned to the basement to find Githyanki snooping around. Oliver still didn't trust the Gith after they broke his brain, so he sent in Shovel for an attack. They got the surprise round, and using his necklace of paralysis, Astarion paralyzed this lady for Oliver to get a good smite. The crew came into the fight one by one, with Gale throwing Sleet Storm to disrupt this woman's casting a portal, Shadowheart sneaking up for another cheeky smite auto crit, and us getting the final blow on the stunned commander. Still having the surprise round advantage, Astarion used a barbed arrow to one-shot the other caster. Oliver got another smite on this swordsman, but didn't have enough actions to take him down. On his turn, he risked an attack of opportunity though, so Astarion got a sneak attack on this swordsman. Then he let loose an arrow of many targets to get some good crits on everyone. Gale had some summons on the field, so he moved them in to finish off one of the remaining gifts that Astarion didn't. The last man standing was taken out by Astarion, and the Dream Visitor revealed the secret room to the crew. They collected everything inside the hideout and got some good things to trade for later. After that, they decided to make their move on the assassin, tracking him to a clothing shop at the edge of the lower city. They had him cornered, but he had the first turn. Taking a haste potion, he missed an attack on Gale, paralyzed the summon for some reason, then attacked Shadowheart and she knocked him prone with a shield dash. She gave him a good smite on her turn as payback for hitting her. Astarion, of course, started to delete everyone with his bow on his turn. Oliver took Shadowheart's lead by showing Dolor to the Divine. And the rest of the doppelgangers were pretty easy to take out. Having dealt with the assassin and getting some more clues, they found out about the murder tribunal hidden under the tombstone shop. They made their way over and walking inside put Oliver to level 11 with the crew not far behind. They went deeper into the tribunal, leaving Shadowheart outside in case this didn't go the way they planned. Here's that statement again, guys. I've never sided with the murder tribunal before, so I didn't know what to expect here. Shadowheart was my fallback plan. In the tribunal, they met Saravok and his daughters, or echoes, or something. They told Oliver about being an assassin of Baal, and he was already so screwed up he didn't see a problem of taking another screw loose from his head. So he agreed to become this assassin, lying to them that the hands he lifted from Dolor were his doing. They believed him, but he had one more thing to prove. Saravok wanted him to kill the elephant investigator who had ignored him earlier. She wasn't really solving the murders, he was, and at this point, he was willing to do anything it took. Oliver had sunken into a place darker than he had ever before. willing to do anything to finally be free. He bathed in a pool of blood, knowing that when he rose, he would be stronger, and he would be one step closer to freedom. That night, the Emperor was a little sentimental. Guys, I'm going for achievements this run. Well, that was some of the most awkward few minutes of my life. Let's go do a heist. The crew returned to Sorcerers and Sundries to get their hands on that book to teach them more about what was controlling the brain. They snuck into an employees only door, touched everything in the room, including this book, and found a portal to get into the vaults. They proceeded to take everything they could find inside, mostly getting a ton of scrolls that Gale could learn later. They even found some secret rooms that, to be honest, I never noticed were there in my first 2 playthroughs. Of course, I had to touch everything. I had never found this before. Guys, this Jin. If you encountered him before, then you probably already know, but I didn't. He orc-napped Oliver and made him take his place in the lamp? Guys, I panicked. I had no idea what was going on, and I had never seen this before. I was not opposed to looking this up because, like I said with the prison, there is no way I was going to blow a 50+ hour run and losing it because of choosing a stupid dialogue option that I didn't know was coming. Once they got Oliver back from the lamp, they continued through the vault, finally making it to the book they needed. Oliver gave it to the nerdiest one in the group, Gale, and he sounded like he wanted to use it to become a god or something, but Oliver reminded him that the crown was one of the things that put them in this situation in the first place, and that their ultimate goal should be to destroy it. With everything they needed from the vault, the team fled the scene so no one suspected them of robbery. After this, they got into various fights and adventures around town to maximize their power potential for facing off with Orin. They killed these fish things on the dock, fought some ball worshippers at the local park, saved Volo from some absolute cultists, talked to Leroican about the night song, kind of stopped the bank from getting robbed, robbed the bank themselves, they robbed a church and got cursed for it, removed the curse and got attacked by a Deva, finally chased the bank robbers down into the sewers, met up with Roa Moonglow again. Hey girl, how are you? Got into a fight with some guild members in the alley, and after looking too closely into some caves and getting into a fight with some more fish creatures and wave mother worshippers, they finally made it to level 12. Feeling secure with their power levels, it was time to take on the unavoidable threat Oliver had to face, Orin. Having gotten the amulet from the murder tribunal already, they entered the temple. You can skip the first section with the ambush, so I had Astarion go invisible and walk straight past. Walking into the inner chamber, it was time. If you couldn't already tell, Oliver is a Dark Urge character for a strategic reason, and it was this fight here. I have actually never finished a Dark Urge playthrough, but I knew that you 1v1 Orin instead of her normal fight. Everything I had read said that this was much easier than her normal fight on honor mode. I'm playing very safe, so easy is what I wanted to hear. I was still going in as prepared as I could though. Oliver was buffed with a potion of vigilance for initiative, and right before he walked down to face Orin, Gale hit him with a haste spell, and since he won't be in the fight if all goes well, and he shouldn't run the risk of losing concentration, Shadowheart also hit him with the bless for good measure. Combat started and Oliver won initiative. He flew over to get in Orin's face, and it was time for me to read her legendary action because I didn't know what it was in a 1v1. It's called Sanguine Lash. Basically, it sounds like she gets a free hit when she is attacked. Oliver threw a hex on her and it triggered the lash. I didn't actually read what the lash itself did, but I saw a successful save, so I might have been lucky here. Her legendary action used for the round, everything was going okay for now. There was 238 health between Oliver and getting rid of the worm. Could he do this all on his own? Wow. Okay. I will have to agree with what I read. That was pretty easy, though I admittedly was purposefully well over-prepared for it. With Orin down, they had cleared the way for the final boss, so it was time to get Gortash and end this. There is one thing that could end this run smoother than I could ask for, but that relies on our buddy Gale. Gale blowing himself up at the final boss does in fact count as a win and avoids the need to have to face the final boss altogether. At this point in the run, I was not opposed to doing this. I have only ever saved Gale and fought the brain in both of the previous completed runs that I've done, so I made a rule to myself that if he offered, I would do it, but if it came down to a roll to convince him, we would fight the brain. The crew made their way through to the morphic pool, sneaking past some intellect devourers who I vividly remember ambushing me in my first run, and they met up with Gortash, waiting as promised. The brain revealed itself, and with the stones in hand, Oliver had the means to try to dominate it, the power to end it all right at his fingers. But when it looked like it wouldn't work, Gortash thought he would give it a try. Damn! Oliver tried again, giving it all he could, but it wasn't enough. The Emperor of all things saved them once again as the brain rose in the city, free of all control. The Emperor explained that the brain was too strong, and only an illithid would be able to control the stones to defeat it. Oliver asked if he could do it if he allowed himself to turn, but Gale had an issue with that. He told Oliver that he could end all of this, but it would end him in the process. Oliver had done so many dark things up to this point, all with the intention of ending the brain and finally feeling like himself again. And in that moment, he realized that his friend was far braver than he could ever be. So he agreed. They explained to the Emperor that Gale could stop this and save everyone, but he didn't trust that Gale would not be tempted by power. Yet Oliver could feel in Gale what he was missing in himself. He knew he would do it. He knew he would save them. As a plan B, the Emperor gave Oliver a brainworm that could transform him, and he agreed that if Gale's plan failed, he would transform. Then the Emperor ate a dude's brain. And it was time to face the end. Believe it or not, I'm going to say this for the last time in this run, I have never sided with the Emperor before. I kind of ignored the Githyanki plotline up until this point because I didn't want to deal with Raphael, though I could have just made a deal with him, I suppose. I kind of thought the Gith would be pissed about Orpheus though, so when I saw one, I decided to make the whole party go invisible to sneak past them and avoid a fight. This didn't work, and the game forced the party into dialogue when they got too close. As expected, Voss was pissed, so I crossed my fingers and hoped that the inspiration I was hoarding could help Oliver pass a DC 30 deception check. Took 2 rerolls, even with advantage, but he successfully convinced the Gith that their savior went mad and tried to kill them. Voss even offered to help them if needed. If only he knew just how little I did to save Orpheus. Wow. Reflecting back on this script helps me realize how some of these choices are, and it's wild. Making it to the courtyard, the team dealt with it the correct way, by turning Astarion invisible, giving him a fly potion, and skipping all the enemies to get to the brainstem. Astarion made it no problem, and when he interacted with the brainstem, the rest of the party teleported into the cutscene. Gale, who was apparently bald under that hood by the way, said that he was ready to end this, and Oliver agreed. Looking the bravest man he ever met in the face one last time, Gale sent his friends to safety and proved that he was the most OP companion in the game by blowing up. Once it was all over, those that remained could feel themselves being released from the worm's grasp. Finally able to have their minds to themselves, but their hearts were heavy, none more so than Oliver's. He had done what he set out to do, but something was wrong. Maybe time could fix it. Maybe. Oliver should have been happy, healing, returning to who he was, but Wither's invitation to celebrate their accomplishments only reminded him what he had failed to do, who he had failed to save. His actions had helped to free them of the worms, but were they truly free? It couldn't end like this. This was not him. This was not right. He had to save them. He had to really save them. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far, and if you watched all the previous videos up until this point, thank you times 1,000. I apologize for Act 3 not being as eventful, but it was always my plan to take the legit but easy route for my first honor mode run. I will say, based off the way that Orin fight went, I feel like I could have done everything and been fine, but I didn't want to risk it. I am starting to fall off my Baldur's Gate 3 kick, and at this point most of the runs I do are experimenting or possible achievements really, so I find myself doing what's the easiest to get to the next point more so than doing it for the full experience. It'll likely be that way until I give the game a break for a bit though. I definitely do feel like I need to earn the dice before I can use them though, so if you are curious, yes, I am in Act 3 again for a second honor run. I tried to save everyone this time. I felt really bad for blowing up Gale at the end. He's one of my favorite characters in the game. I also blew off every other companion's questline, so I thought the second run I would do them all. It hasn't really turned out that way, but it wasn't my fault this time, I swear. Bad dice rolls made me throw out my plans of saving everyone pretty early, but I do plan to fight all the bosses this time, so maybe I'll make a video from that when I have the time. Anyways, thank you again for watching. I really do hope that you enjoyed this, even though I'm a filthy casual and this was definitely not an expert playthrough of Honor Mode. I really had fun editing these videos, and I hope in some ways you got some enjoyment out of it too. I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.